Today we are going to talk about 3 things that almost always live quietly in the back of people's minds when they think about international travel. Phones, money, and safety. These are not the glamorous parts of travel. They're not the things people post about or even daydream about. They're the practical questions that show up late at night when the excitement fades and the responsibility kicks in. Questions like, how am I actually going to pay for things? And what happens if my phone doesn't work? Or what if something goes wrong and I don't know what to do? I want to say this clearly from the beginning. Thinking about those things does not mean you are anxious, dramatic, or not cut out for international travel. It means you are thoughtful. And with the right information, these concerns stop feeling heavy very quickly. I'm Mari Bay. I am a travel advisor, and a big part of my work is helping people understand what travel actually feels like, not just where they're going. Today, I want to walk through money, phones, and safety abroad in a very grounded, very real way. I don't want this to be fear-based, and I don't want this to be overly complicated. I really just want the things that matter to be at the forefront, so you can replace anxiety with clarity and feel steady instead of on edge. Money tends to be the first stress point for most travelers, especially if it's their first time leaving the country. People worry about how payments work, whether they'll need cash, if their card will be declined, or if they'll accidentally overspend without realizing it. But here's the truth. International travel today is far more card-based than most people expect. If you have a Visa or you have a MasterCard, you're probably going to be okay. In the vast majority of tourist-friendly destinations, credit cards are accepted almost everywhere you'll reasonably be going. So hotels, restaurants, tour operators, transportation services, shopping, and even many small businesses regularly process international cards. You are not stepping into a cash-only world just because you crossed a border. That said, cash still plays a role, and understanding when and why helps remove a lot of uncertainty. Cash is useful for small purchases, tipping in certain destinations, rural areas, markets, or situations where card machines may not be reliable. The mistake people make is assuming they need to arrive with large amounts of cash already exchanged, when in reality, the easiest and usually most cost-effective way to get local currency is through an ATM once you arrive. ATM withdrawals give you access to local cash at market exchange rates, and you can take out small amounts as needed instead of carrying everything at once. Before you travel, there are a few simple financial preparations that make a big difference. Let your bank and credit card companies know that you will be traveling internationally so they don't flag normal purchases as suspicious. Check whether your cards charge foreign transaction fees so you are not surprised later. And bring more than one card if you can, ideally from different networks. This is not about fear or expecting something to go wrong, it's just about redundancy. Travel is smoother when you're not relying on a single point of failure. One thing people don't realize until they experience it is that cards occasionally don't work for very boring reasons. A terminal might be offline, a machine might not accept a certain network, perhaps your daily limit might be reached faster than expected. None of this is dramatic, but having a second card or a small amount of cash means the moment passes without stress. That's the pattern you want. Small issues that don't turn into big emotional events and what can feel like a crisis. Another source of money anxiety is exchange rates. People worry they'll be constantly calculating or accidentally overspending, when in practice, most credit cards handle conversion automatically and you'll see the charge in your home currency on your statement. You do not need to mentally convert every purchase while standing at a counter. A general sense of cost is helpful, but perfection is definitely not required. Travel is not an accounting exam, and it's okay to let the systems do their job. Now let's talk about phones, because phone anxiety is very real and often underestimated. People worry about losing service, racking up massive charges, not being able to navigate, or feeling completely disconnected in an unfamiliar place. Phones truly have become a safety net for most of us, so the idea of losing access can feel destabilizing. The good news is that you have multiple options, and none of them require suffering or going off the grid unless you want to. Broadly speaking, most travelers choose between 3 phone solutions when traveling internationally. International plans through their existing carrier, eSIMs, or local SIM cards. There is no universally correct option. The right choice just ultimately depends on how you travel, how much data you use, and how simple you want the process to be. For most first-time international travelers, the simplest option is either an international plan added to your existing phone service or an eSIM purchased in advance. I do recommend the Air Allo eSIM. It is super easy to use, budget friendly, and you can set it all up before you leave. Both options allow you to land, turn on your phone, and have data without needing to troubleshoot anything in the moment. And don't get me wrong, having data access changes everything. Your maps work, your messages go through, you're still able to hail an Uber or a Lyft. Confirmations are accessible, and even if you don't use your phone constantly, knowing it's there just reduces background anxiety. That sense of connection is often more important than the actual usage itself. And while local SIM cards can be a good option for longer trips or heavy data use, they do require more setup, and you must be comfortable with swapping SIMs out. There is nothing wrong with choosing simplicity, especially on your first few trips. It's also important to be realistic about what you actually need your phone for. You need it for navigation, communication, accessing confirmations, and occasional reassurance. And you have to keep in mind that Wi-Fi is widely available in hotels, cafes, and many public spaces. Offline maps can also be downloaded in advance, and screenshots of important information can live in your camera roll. Once you understand that your phone is a tool, not a lifeline, the pressure around it eases. Now, let's talk about safety, and let's do it without drama. Safety anxiety often comes from imagining worst-case scenarios rather than understanding how people actually stay safe while traveling. Most safety concerns abroad are not about danger so much as they are about unfamiliarity. Being in a new environment automatically heightens awareness, which can easily tip into anxiety if you don't have context. In reality, staying safe abroad relies on these same principles you already use at home. Awareness, not advertising valuables, understanding local norms, and avoiding unnecessary risk. You don't always need to be hypervigilant. You don't need to assume danger around every corner. You just need to be present and trust your gut instinct. Most travelers are far safer than their anxiety tells them they are, especially when they're staying in vetted accommodations and moving through well-traveled areas. One of the biggest contributors to safety anxiety is uncertainty around transportation and lodging. When you know where you are staying, how you are getting there, and what's normal in that destination, your nervous system relaxes. This is why thoughtful planning matters so much. Not to control the experience, but to remove unnecessary unknowns. When transportation is arranged, accommodations are reputable, and expectations are set, safety stops feeling like a looming question and becomes part of the background. Another thing people underestimate is how much safety is tied to confidence. Not bravado, but calm confidence. Moving deliberately, not appearing lost or rushed, and trusting your instincts go a long way. If something doesn't feel right, you are allowed to pause, step away, or even ask for help. Most people you encounter while traveling want to assist, not take advantage of you. And fear tends to isolate people mentally, but clarity helps reconnect them. It's also worth naming that safety anxiety is often amplified by consuming extreme stories online. Millions of people travel internationally every day without incident, but that's not what makes headlines or viral posts. When you ground yourself in realistic expectations instead of rare exceptions, the emotional temperature drops. All three of these areas, money, phones, and safety, are all deeply connected by one underlying theme. Uncertainty creates anxiety, clarity creates calm. When you understand how things work, you stop bracing for impact and start moving through the experience with more ease. This is why planning matters, not because travel is dangerous, but because support changes how it feels. If international travel excites you, but these practical details feel heavy or intimidating, that's exactly the space I work in with my clients, especially for destinations like Costa Rica, where understanding how money works, how connectivity works, and what safety actually looks like on the ground changes the entire tone of the trip. The goal is not to make travel impressive. The goal is to make it feel steady, grounded, and enjoyable in your body. You will find some helpful resources below in the caption, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. I will see you in the next video.